So like I said, if you did not start the first part because you may have been, not able to get your clay, don't have a ride to the school right now, when you get it, I'm gonna be posting every one of these little demos up on YouTube, just the little demo part, so that you can follow along and gradually catch up as you need to. I'm gonna be making 2 different vases, one during your class and one during my 4th block, so I'll have 2 to, go ahead and work on. I'm gonna do this one during your class and this one during the other one, because that's when I made them. And these are my templates. I noticed the other day when I was showing them, it was really hard to tell where they lined up, so I just went in with Sharpie, so it's gonna be like a lot easier to show you guys. See, I think that's better. I think that worked better, where it lines up. What I wanna go over today, well, first of all, does anyone have any questions on getting started? No. If you guys have your materials, put your camera on so I could see what you're doing and I could help you that way. It's gonna be the best way. Make sure that you have some slip on you. If you don't have any fresh slip now, just crunch up some dry clay. I like to just leave out a piece overnight, a very small piece, put it in some water and let it kind of cure in there for 20 minutes or so. I think you'll also notice that your porcelain piece may be kind of dry, but after setting it up overnight with some damp paper towels, it kind of comes to life again. Did anyone notice that when they were working, that like it was better this morning? Okay, good. Now remember, when you are rolling out your coils, they're gonna be small coils. And also remember that when I created my base, I used the bottom of one of these really tiny cups. And I know, we have worked with them, whether you guys were working virtually or remotely, virtually or hybrid, so you should know about the size. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna roll out a small coil, and you wanna make sure you're really compressing this together. And I think you'll almost notice like porcelain is kind of like Play-Doh when you first start working with it. And it's really easy though to then go in and fill in any of the cracks. Maybe that's even too big of a piece. I grabbed a big chunk of clay. That's what you heard at the beginning when I was kind of like making a lot of noise. I was just kind of working the porcelain out. It was like a really hard piece. I don't know why, it was so weird. One of the blocks of porcelain was really, really hard, even though the other one in the box was fine. All right, so I got my coil. Remember, we want to keep it like approximately the size of like a pen or a pencil. Maybe I'll roll it out a smidge more, but this is from that dry clay block, so it's not loving me so much right now. You want to make sure you do your slip and score. And honestly, I don't know why it's called slip and score, because first you score it, then you slip it. Maybe it just sounds better that way, but it's quite deceiving. And then make sure that you get your little marks on here. Put a little slip on there. Hopefully you guys still have, I think I gave you a paintbrush at the beginning of the year. If not, you could just put slip on like any of your tools. This is kind of like a thin slip that I'm putting on, but Miss Clayton did not cover her slip yesterday, and I just ruined it. All right, so here's where the template comes in, and this is gonna be a big difference today than it was when we first started out. Remember, if you just created a template the other day, you wanna make sure to go in and not have this edge pointed out. You wanna cut it so it's like squared off. Important because it's gonna line up with your project a lot better. I'm gonna now go in with my coil and I'm gonna line it up with my template. And I kind of like to go around in about 4 areas and see where it's gonna meet up. Just make sure that you catch up on what you work on what we're working on, I'm sorry. And go in and cut it off. Like I said, I wasn't allowed to send home pin tools, but this guy could be used, your rib tool, to cut the clay a little bit easier. Line that up. Yes, I knew that had to go in a little bit. And as long as it's lining up and touching your template, usually on, kind of think of it as a compass, north, south, east, west. Oh my goodness, I can't talk when I'm doing remote. So just making sure it lines up. Add a little bit of clay at the connection point. You could even add in a little bit of slip if you want to, just to emphasize that connection. And this will just, help it be nice and even. All right, remember the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is smooth the inside. You wanna make sure that you really hold this like you would almost like pick up a bowl. Pretend, you would be applying that much pressure, so that when you go ahead and smooth it in, it's not gonna move too much on you. Now, it's gonna move a little bit, but then we could just go ahead, line the template up and adjust it where it needs to be. Is anyone having any struggles working with the porcelain that you're just noticing in general? Something I kind of go over because we're in the video now, so that might help some people. I mean, you guys all seem to be doing a pretty good job, everyone that's on screen, so. Sometimes you'll notice that when you apply the slip, if it's a little too watery, it's hard to smooth the clay. Then I would just kind of let it dry out for 2 minutes and then go ahead and try to smooth it. And then we'll go ahead and we'll do the outside. And remember, you can use tools too. You don't have to just use your fingers. You could go in with your rib tool and smooth it. That connects the coils really well. We talked yesterday about creating custom rib tools out of gift cards that don't have a balance on them. So make sure you check that just in case. And for me, just because the porcelain is a harder clay, it's not as squishy as, you know, the typical other clay bodies that we were working with in class. It's gonna really help, I think, for you to apply the pressure this way in the circular motion. Another thing you could do is make sure you really make use of the wooden tool. You could, you know, rest your either thumb or pointer finger in it and use that to bring down and smooth the inside, kind of like almost a little rib tool, a mini guy. So I'm just, if you can see, bringing the clay down and then swiping across. Let me pin myself so I could see what I'm doing, so I could see what you guys could see. Oh, it froze. All right. So essentially what I'm doing here is I am bringing this down, 1, 2, 3, and then you'll notice I have some clay that's kind of like sitting in the middle. It's not completely smooth. You're gonna then want to go in with your tool and just swipe across, and that'll smooth it out really nicely. You could use this on the outside too if you feel it'll help you, especially more towards the bottom. And don't worry, we're gonna go in later and do something called burnishing. It's gonna really help smooth out some of the little areas that are a little bumpy. And once we remove it from the board, we'll be able to smooth it out much easier as well. We just use the slip to stick it down so that it's not moving all over on you. It's nice and stationary to work with, especially in the beginning. So I usually like to do 1, 2, 3, slide it across. I want to make sure that you could see this. I'm gonna smooth down 1, 2, 3, and then just really smooth all that in, work that in there. All right, after that, back to our template. And we want to make sure that it still lines up. So right now we're west. We're gonna go north, east. I could bump it out a little bit, and south. And this part could really get bumped out quite a bit. So I'm just kind of applying a little bit of pressure, smoothing it in so that it meets. I'm just gonna go in, clean up the top a little bit here, and then I'm gonna go in with my next coil. Okay, let me see how you guys are doing. Does anyone else have a workstation set up so I could see what you got going on? Well, I mean, you should, but like in an okay area that you want to put on camera. Try to set up a really nice workstation for yourself. Like I'm just kind of working at this one table in the classroom. I know it's really difficult at home to, find a spot to work with purified dirt, but I want to make the most of this we can. Ceramics pandemic style. And like I said, if you have not been able to get your clay yet, make sure that you watch the first video and then this one so that you could catch up, because I want to try to do this project within the class time, so you're not going to have, you know, a ton of outside work where you're like, oh no, I have to make, you know, a lot of studio time. I want to kind of replicate it as if we were in class working during this, you know, 45 minutes. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to roll another coil out. That's even too big. Try to make it nice and even. If you get like a piece that's a little too thick, just kind of concentrate on that area. All right. Last time I slipped and scored with a wooden tool. This time I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna make some marks with this guy, our little metal rib. And I'm so excited to see your paintings and everything. So many of you guys have beautiful designs that you drew up. All right, I'm gonna put my slip on. Just a little bit, just enough so that it goes into the cracks so that it will make a really nice bond. And if you have any little cracks forming, go in with the slip and, you know, smooth those out as well. And you, like I said, usually when you cover it up overnight, it'll refresh. And then go ahead and score this up. I like this one because you could just kind of go in and make little X's. I'm planning on working on constructing these until maybe about Wednesday of next week. Then we'll go in and we'll burnish them and start drawing up our designs. All right, so this coil is actually going in quite a bit. Maybe I'll make it a little smaller. That's another thing too. I'm actually glad I messed that up. When working with a template, if there's an area that's just ever so slight, you're probably going to want to create a smaller coil, where if you have like more of an area, like, you know, going straight for a while, you could probably work with coils that are a little bit bigger. So I'm going to just kind of lean this in. So as I'm attaching it, I'm pinching it on and leaning it inward. And you'll see already I'm going to start to be shaping the bottom up. Gonna have to go in more, and then just kind of pinching it inwards so I know that it's gonna stay like that. Does that make sense? How I'm kind of like almost making it go inwards rather than just having the coil set there. last side. And then you're just gonna wanna do it right where you caught your vase. And I know, like with a template, sometimes it seems like, oh, that's a lot of work. But trust me, it's gonna give you such an even form. It may look a little ugly if it's not perfectly smoothed right now, but that's okay. Trust me. We're gonna get these super smooth. So I just slipped and scored that a little bit. I'm also gonna show you probably like Monday or Tuesday. Let me go grab the picture actually. I did have a few students in years past that decided to create a little foot on the bottom of their vase. I'll show you guys how you could make something like that and attach it on if you do want to get like a little bit of a flare on the bottom. A lot of the traditional porcelain vases had something like that. So you don't have to, but it's an idea, and I'll show you guys how to do it. It's essentially making like a little upside down coil pot and attaching it. Oh, okay, Stacey. Yes, and too, like I said, if you were unable to grab your clay, make sure that you are like all set to go. You got your sketch with you, you have your template made, you have your tools all cleaned off, you have a little workstation so that as soon as you get it, you're ready. Okay, I'm gonna use this again to smooth, and when you start going in on your vase, do you see it's kind of slightly going in? You want to make sure to cup your hand a little bit on the inside when you're smoothing, because that's going to allow it not to get pushed outward. It's going to help you keep the shape. So I'm going to use my tool again. 1, 2, 3, and then swipe over. That's what seems to be working best for me right now. Oh, and also just one other thing I wanted to remind you guys. I gave you, I think a pretty good amount of clay for each project. If for some reason you run out, I did put a little bit extra up front so you could come grab another bag of it. But I think that we should be pretty good. This might be the only project you may need a little bit more for, but they are tiny. I think you'll be okay. And I did cut them, to kind of different sizes. I tried to make it even, but that was a lot of clay. So I'm just kind of pushing down, like I said, 3 times, and then smoothing that over while still maintaining my hand on the inside. And you also want to make sure that you're not seeing like the coil lines, that you're filling those in. So if your clay isn't malleable enough, movable enough to spread out, you could also take some little extra pieces of clay and fill in some of those areas. You could go in with your hand, and even maybe one of like your other coils had more clay and you could bring it up. And the same thing for when you're working your edges here, when you're going inward, you want to make sure that your hand is like this, kind of like going inward. So it's going to hold it in that spot so that when you're smoothing in, you're not moving it around too much. So really, once you get your base made and you get it stuck onto your board, you're just using your template. We're just kind of following the guide that you made. And any problems you guys run into, we'll fix them up. I would say the key things are just making sure that your clay stays fresh. If you want to, put a little wet paper towel in there, not a ton, just like a slightly damp paper towel, and then making sure that you cover up your projects with a damp paper towel as well. I'm gonna go in now with my rib tool. And if you feel like the top of your pot is kind of cracking a little bit, you could, maybe wait a few minutes. What I like to do is, say I want to keep working on it, but I feel like I need to adjust it. It needs some moisture, added into it. Go ahead, put a damp paper towel on it for like 10 minutes. And it should revamp it a little bit. And I'm just going in and getting this nice and smooth. Another thing you could do to start cleaning up the bottom more and more is use your wooden knife tool and kind of like scrape along the bottom. So I have it facing down like that. And I'm just scraping some of that excess off. So if it kind of looks a little lumpy. And then I'm gonna take it the opposite way and go around the edge. And that'll help you as well. All right, looking a little bit better already. Check your template. That's my roll. I was gonna say, how did I mess that up? That was my 4th block template. All right, making sure that it really lines up. So I'm actually gonna pinch this inward a little bit. North, south, east, west. Remember that. Oh, that side lines up nice. And then you'll also notice like this side, I needed to actually like push it out a little bit more. So right now we're mainly concerned with the shape and getting it as smooth as you can. You'll see, even mine is a little bit rough. We're gonna go in and really, really smooth them up once we're all finished constructing. How are you guys doing? Good? Does anyone have any questions? Or any like issues you're encountering? Like anything drying out or something going on? All right. So I feel like you guys kind of got the gist of this by looking around. I'm gonna continue to do one more coil on here so I have more set up for you guys for tomorrow. And so how I want to go through and look at these is I'm going to have you guys upload a image of your actual just like built piece of pottery, plain, and then an upload of it with the drawing on it, or maybe we'll just kind of like show those in class, and then the final upload with the all the underglaze painting on it. I'm gonna be planning on, once those clay carts are pretty much depleted and everyone has their supplies, that's gonna then be the drop-off cart. So once we're finished with these, or maybe you wanna wait for like 2 projects, I'll be like, all right, you guys can start dropping things off. We'll go over how to wrap them up really, really, really well. I'll use mine as an example, and then I'll start firing them for you guys. All right, I'm just gonna continue coiling, use my template, and if you guys have any questions, we'll go ahead and we'll answer them.